the person struck survives for a day or two, and likewise whether a pregnant woman is killed by blows or only the fruit of her womb dies. But that was said when the light of perfection was still far away. Now it is amongst you, and says, who kills his fellow creature commits a sin. And his sin is not only against man, but also against God. What is man? Man is sovereign creature whom God created to be king of creation, and he created him in his image and likeness, giving him his likeness according to the Spirit and his image by drawing his perfect image with his perfect thought. Look at the air, at the earth, at the sea. Can you see an animal or a plant, however beautiful it may be, which is equal to man? Animals run, eat, drink, sleep, procreate, work, sing, fly, creep, climb, but they do not speak. Man can also jump and run, and is so agile in jumping as to emulate birds. He can swim and is so fast that he seems a fish. He can creep and looks like a reptile, and he climbs like a monkey, and he can sing like a bird. He can procreate and reproduce, and besides, he can speak. Do not say every animal has this language. True, one moves, another bleats, another brays, another chirps, another wobbles, but the last bull will bellow exactly the same as the first one, and so sheep will bleat until the end of the world, and donkeys will bray like the first one, and sparrows will always chirp, while the lark and the nightingale will sing their songs, and the former to the sun and the latter to the starry night. Also on the last day of the world, exactly as they greeted the first sun and the first night, man, instead of having not only a voice and a tongue, but also a nervous system, the center of which is the brain and the seat of intelligence, is capable of perceiving new sensations, meditating on them, and giving them names. Adam called dog his friend and gave the name of the lion to the animal that seemed most likely it because of its mane around its short bearded face. He called the sheep lamb that greeted him mildly, and gave the name of the bird to the beautiful flower, a feather that flies like a butterfly but sings a sweet song that a butterfly cannot sing. And later, throughout the centuries, the children of Adam created new names as when they became acquainted with the works of God in his creatures, as through the divine spark which is in man, they not only procreated children, but they also create things which are useful or harmful to their children according to whether they were of God or against God. Those who create and do good things are with God. Those who create wicked things harmful to their neighbor are against God. God avenges his children, tortured by man's wickedness. Man is thus the favored creature of God. Even if he is now guilty, he is still the dearest creature to him, that is witnessed by the fact he has sent his own word, not an angel, not an archangel, not a cherubim, not a seraphim, but his own word, clad with human flesh to save man. He did not deem that flesh unworthy to make him liable to suffer and expiate, who being a most pure spirit himself, could not have suffered and expiated the sin of man. The Father said to me, you shall become man. The man I made one. He was perfect as everything I made. He was destined to a peaceful life, a most peaceful final sleep, a happy awakening, and a most happy eternal life in my celestial paradise. But you know that nothing contaminated may enter our paradise, because we, one, the triune God, have our throne. Only holiness is allowed to stand before it. He who I am, my divine nature, our mysterious being, can be known only to those who are without sin. Now man, Adam, and through Adam is foul. Go cleanse him, I want it. From now on you shall be the man, the firstborn, because you will be the first to enter here with mortal flesh, deprived of the original sin. Those who have preceded you on the earth, those who will come after you, will receive life through your death of a Redeemer. Only one who is born can die, and I was born and I will die. Man is the favored creature of God. Now tell me, if a father has many children, but one is his darling, the apple of his eye, and that one is killed, will the father not suffer more than he would have suffered in another son had he been killed? That should not happen because a father should be just to all his children, but it happens because man is not perfect. God can do so with justice because man is the only creature amongst all the created things who has a spiritual soul in common with his Creator, Father, on an undeniable sign of his divine paternity. If one kills the Son of the Father, does one offend only the Father? No, one offends also the Father. One offends the Son in his flesh and the Father in his heart. Both are wounded. But killing the man does not. Does one only offend the man? No, also God. Man in his flesh, God in his right, because life and death are to be given and taken by him alone. To kill is to do violence to God and to man. To kill is to enter into God's domain. To kill is to go against the commandments of love. Who kills does not love God because he dissipates one of his works. A man who kills does not love his neighbor because he takes away from his neighbor what a murderer wants for himself. Life. I have replied to the first two questions. Where did I strike? One can strike in the street, in the house of a person assaulted, or by alluring the victim to his own home. One can strike either one or another organ, causing the more severe pain, or committing two homicides in one by striking a woman whose womb is bearing its fruit. One may strike in the street unintentionally, and an animal that gets out of hand may kill a passerby, in which case there is no premeditation. But if a man armed with a dagger, wearing a fine dissembled clothes, goes to the house of his enemy, and often an enemy is a person who only fault is being better, invites him to his own home under pretext of honoring him, and then cuts his throat and throws him into the well, then there is premeditation, and his guilt is complete in malice, ferocity, and in violence. If I kill a mother and her child, then God will ask me to account for two deaths, because the womb that gives birth to a man according to the commandments of God is sacred, and sacred is the young life that grows within it, to whom God has given a soul. By which means did I strike? In vain one says, I did not intend to strike. If he went armed with an accurate arm, in a fit of anger also one's hand may become a weapon, or a stone picked up off the ground, or a branch taken from a tree. But who inspects his dagger or an axe with cold determination and sharpens it as if he thinks that it is not sharp enough, then conceals it safely on his body, so that although it is not seen, it may be easily grasped, and his being ready thus goes to his enemy, cannot certainly say, I did not intend to strike. Who prepares a poison, pick poisonous herbs and fruits and makes a powder, or drink with them, which he then offers to the victim as spices and cider, cannot certainly say, I did not want to kill. And now listen, you women, tacit, unpunished murderesses of so many lives. It is also murder to detach the fruit that is growing in a womb, because it is a guilty seed, or because it is an embryo that is not wanted, being a useless burden to your bodies and your wealth. There is only one way not to have that burden, by being chaste. Do not join homicide to lust, violence to disobedience. And do not think God does not see simply because man does not see. God sees everything and remembers everything. You ought to remember that too. Why did I strike? Oh, how many reasons the sudden mental turmoil which causes in you a violent emotion, such as finding your nuptial bed polluted, a thief at the home, a dirty fellow intent on doing violence to your young daughter, the cold premeditated planning to get rid of a dangerous witness, of someone who encumbered your way, of someone at whose position or purse you aim, who are some of the many, those are some of the many reasons. And if God can still forgive who in a painful derangement becomes a murderer, he will not forgive who becomes such through lust for power or for man's esteem. Also behave properly, and you will fear nobody's eye or word. Be happy with what you possess, and you will not aspire to other people's property. to the extent of becoming murderers in order to have what belongs to your neighbor. How did I strike? Being pitilessly. Also, after the first impulsive outburst, sometimes man cannot control himself because Satan throws him into an evil as a sling hurls a stone. But what would you say of a stone which after reaching its target would fly back by itself to the sling to be hurled again and strike once more? You would say it is possessed. The first blow he strikes a second, a third, a 10th time with unbridled ferocity. Because the wrath abates, the reason takes over after the first outburst, if it is an outburst caused by justifiable reason. Whereas ferocity increases the more the victim is struck by a genuine murderer, that is, by a Satan who does not feel and cannot feel pity for a brother because, being Satan, he is hatred personified. When did I strike? During a final outburst, after it had subsided, pretending I had forgiven, whereas my grudge grew more and more? Did I perhaps wait for years before striking to cause double pain by killing the father through his children? You can see that by killing one offends the first and the second group of commandments, because you unduly claim the right of God and you oppress your neighbor. It is therefore a sin against God, against your neighbor. You do not only commit the sin of homicide, but you commit the sin of wrath, of violence, of pride, of disobedience, of sacrilege, and sometimes when you kill to steal a position or a purse, of greed. I will only mention this now, and I will explain it to you in greater detail some other day. One does not commit homicide only by means of a weapon or poison, but also by slander. Meditate on that. I also say to you, the master who strikes a slave does it cunningly so that he may not die in his hands is twice guilty. A slave is not money of his master, he is a soul of his God, and cursed be forever who treats him worse than a bull. Jesus' eyes sparkle with majesty and his voice thunder. They all look at him amazed, because before he was speaking quietly. May he be cursed. The new law repeals what harshness was still justice when in the people of Israel there were no hypocrites who pretended to be saints and sharpened their wits only to take advantage of the law of God or elude it. But now that Israel is overflowing with such vipers, for whom all caprices are lawful when it suits them, the miserable mighty ones whom God looks at with hatred and disgust, I say it is no longer so. Slaves fall in the field or at the millstone. They fall with fractured bones, with nerves laid bare by scourges. They accuse them of false crimes so they may strike them and thus justify their diabolical sadism. They even make use of God's miracles as an occasion to have the right to strike them. Neither God's power nor a slave's holiness convert their wicked souls. They cannot be converted. Good will not enter a soul glutted with evil, but God sees and says, it is enough. There are too many Cains who kill the Abels, and what do you think, you foul sepulchres whose outsides are whitewashed and covered with the words of the law, and in whose insides Satan dominates as a king, and most cunning Satanism flourishes? What do you think, that only Abel was Adam's son, and that God looks benignly only at those who are not slaves of men, and that he refuses only the offer that a slave can make, the only offer a slave can make, his honesty seasoned with his tears? No, I solemnly tell you that every just man is an Abel, even if he is laden with feathers, even if he is dying on the furrows or bleeding because of your scourging, and that all the unjust people are Cains, who out of pride, not out of true veneration, give to God with what is contaminated with their sins and stains with their blood. Desecrators of miracles, desecrators of men, murderers, impious people, out, away from my sight. Enough, I say enough. I can say that because I am the divine word who translates divine thoughts always.